Message for the day. Know what your strengths are and know what your weaknesses are. Play to your strengths and attract people around you that are strong in the area of your weaknesses. One of the things that has happened over the years in martial arts is the recognition that people needed to work and be better at their weaknesses. So some guys were great at wrestling, but they weren't good at stand-up fighting, and so they lost a lot of matches. Some guys were great at stand-up fighting, and they weren't great at wrestling, and so they lost a lot of matches. And over the years, these different styles of fighting recognize that you can have a strength in one area, but you need to get better in your weaknesses in order to have a chance at winning at the next level. In our business, your core competency is going to be on one of two sides. It's either going to be on the side of technical analysis, the engineering, CPA, math, and science background, or it's going to be on the marketing and communication side. One side has really high IQ, which is the technical side. The other side has really high EQ, which is the emotional quotient. Both are equally important in winning in any business. If you find some business that's only strong in one of those areas, they're never going to make it to the highest levels. It's always about complementing your weaknesses with a team around you. I remember a story hearing that a guy was in a hot air balloon and floating over a farm, and he was lost. And so he looks down and he sees this guy and he says, "Hey, can you help me? I'm lost. Where am I?" And the guy said, "Well, you're in a hot air balloon about 50 yards above my farm." And the guy in the balloon said, "Hey, I appreciate it. You must be an engineer." And the guy said, "How did you know?" And he said, "Well, your information was technically accurate, but completely useless." And the engineer looked up and said, "Sorry about that. You must be in upper management." And the guy said, "How did you know that?" And he said, "Oh, you're up and floating around in the clouds and you get lost and then you blame it on me." And both of those are right to some degree. And so what is your strength? Do you fall on the left brain side or do you fall on the right brain side? And whichever it is, play to your strength, but recognize to bring up your other weaknesses with teammates around you, people that have those strengths and can complement what you do. There's a very small percentage, just a few people that really develop being masters in all of that, where they're really like business chameleons. They can kind of, they've got so good and work so much on their craft that they end up doing that. But in our business, and in any business, strength comes from who you attract and who you have around you. But it's foolish to think that someone says, "Hey, I don't need to work on anything that's weakness of mine because this is really what matters." And I remember hearing a story, I don't know how high the IQ number goes, but it was a kid, I think he was 9 or 10 years old, and his IQ was over 150. And I don't know the highest that it goes, but I know I'm nowhere close to that. And most people aren't. So this guy at 9 years old is hacking into NASA. So he gets caught, and NASA says, "Hey, you have two choices. We're either going to extradite you to the U.S. Or you can work for us." And because he was, I think, 10 maybe at the time, something like that, 10, 11, you couldn't employ the kid. So he actually started his own business and worked in this area. And what he said is, even at that young age, he said, "Well, because I was so smart, I knew exactly what to do. I hired the smartest, most gifted kids that were also in my grade and my age." And he said, "I said, what could possibly go wrong when we have the brightest minds ever?" And he said, the collective IQ, he said, we didn't even have anybody on our team that had an IQ under 150. And so he said, but here's what happened. Astonishingly, We had so many smart people. The IQ was so high. The technical analysis and the information and the attention to detail was so high. He said, we weren't able to function as effectively as we could. He said, and he had, at like 10 years old, had read an article about emotional intelligence, the emotional quotient, not the IQ and the intelligent quotient, but the emotional intelligence. And he said what he found was he went out and attracted, he actually even used the word part-time moms, people that were great with communication and relationships. And he said, we had them manage the team of 150 IQ people. And he said, our business exploded.